So welcome back to episode 19 of my Vlogmas series. Today I am casting back the years a little bit to the first time I broke 15 minutes in the 5k some 16 months ago. I ran 14:57 at the Wimbledon 5,000 meter festival in 2022. And in today's video I thought I would talk you through some of my training I did to break that 15-minute barrier, go over 3 key workouts that I used, and hopefully you can apply that to your own training if you yourself are also looking to PB in the 5k or even break the 15-minute barrier yourself. So in the Wimbledon 5,000 meter festival I ran 14:57. It was the first time I ever broke 15 minutes. My previous PB going into the race was 15 minutes and 11 seconds. So I wanted to have a little look back at the 8 weeks I did prior to that race and talk you through the sort of mileage I was doing, the sort of training I was doing, and the sort of long runs that I was doing in order for you to have a good insight into what it takes to run that sub 15 minutes. So in the 8-week period building up to the race, I averaged 131 kilometers per week, which was 1,053 kilometers. My training was very much consistent apart from 1 week of illness. Other than that, I had a session every week, a speed session, a longer, more threshold tempo style session, and then a long run, which I alternated in each week, which I'll talk through in just a little bit. But I wanted to talk about 3 of the sessions I did to give you an insight into the sort of sessions I was doing and the sort of paces I was running for the reps. So the first workout I wanted to talk you through was a workout I did 3 weeks before the race. It was 4 sets of 3 times 500 meters. These are typical workouts that I would have done down at the track. I was training at the time with some athletes that were faster than me over the 1500 meters, so it was always good to get these speed sessions in once per week to encourage me to develop a little bit more of that top end speed. So this specific workout was you run 500 meters at between your 3k and 1500 meter pace. You then have 20 seconds before starting the second 500 meters. You then have 20 seconds again before starting the third 500 meters, and it was in sets of 3, and we did each set 4 times. It was around 6 kilometers of work, all at around my 3k to 1500 meter pace, so faster than my 5k race pace, hence why I used to call it the speed sessions. And for this workout, looking back at it now, I average 1 minute and 24 seconds per 500 meters, which translates into around 2:48 per kilometer, which is roughly around my 3k pace. And the last rep I ran in 1 minute and 20 seconds, which is 2:40 per kilometer, so again around 20 seconds quicker than my 5k race pace. These sessions were really good at developing my top end speed, so that when it comes to the 5k, running at 3 minutes per kilometer didn't necessarily feel too fast. I felt in control and felt comfortable having trained at slightly faster speeds. And if I was looking to improve my 5k PB, I would be including these style workouts at least once per week to really improve your top end speed. And the second workout I wanted to draw attention to was more of a longer style session that I would typically do again once per week, so focus more on threshold running, which is roughly the pace that you can maintain for an hour. So this session was 10 by 1k with 1 minute recovery in between. Super simple session, and I think I averaged between 3:15 and 3:20 per kilometer. So looking back at it now, it was nothing special. The reps were around 20 seconds per kilometer slower than my race pace, but the overall session was quite big in volume. So for this session I did 10 reps, so 10 kilometers of work, whereas my race was only 5k. So sort of an over distance session, working on building that threshold pace. I just find that helps really build my strength. So when again running at my 5k pace, I feel like I can maintain it over the course of the whole race. If you're at the very start of your training block, I would recommend doing a lot more threshold tempo style running, and then as you get a little bit closer to your race, then you want to include the workouts like the first one, those speed work to really get your leg turnover moving ahead of the race. And the third and final workout I wanted to draw attention to in my training prior to the 5k race was my taper session. So 2 days before the race, I decided to do my final workout of the block, which was 2 sets of 1k, 600, 300. Now the idea of the session was on those 1k reps was to really dial into my race pace, so 3 minutes per kilometer or faster. And I think for this session, 2 days before, I averaged 3:01 per k, so pretty much spot on. For the 600s, I would then increase the pace a little bit, and I ran a pace of 2:47, so those 600s were in around 1 minute and 40 seconds. And then for those 300 meter reps, I would really work on improving my turnover. So these are almost flat out. I averaged 43 seconds, which is 2:28 per kilometer, which is really my top end speed as a long distance runner. And I just find taper session like that gets your body ready to run fast. The volume of the workout is relatively small, but the intensity is quite high. So for me, this style of taper session works really well. It's something that I've practiced with races, and I find 2 to 3 days before the race is a really good time to do them. And it just leaves me feeling fresh, sharp, ready to run fast on race day. So yeah, if you want to include a taper session in your 5k plan, then you want to be doing this probably around 3 days before the race itself. So I also quickly wanted to touch on the type of long runs that I was doing during the block. So I decided to alternate between a steady long run and a long run more at my tempo effort. So for example, 1 week I would run 22 kilometers at around 4 minutes 4:05 per kilometer, which for me is about 30 seconds quicker than my easy run pace. And then the week after, I would do a slightly shorter long run, but with a bit more intensity. So I averaged around 3:35 per kilometer, which is more of a tempo effort. So I found a really good balance between doing a long steady run versus a shorter, longer run with a little bit more intensity, and I alternated that each week. These long runs range from 22 kilometers all the way up to around 26 kilometers, which for me, looking back, is probably around the sweet spot that I like to do when I'm training for the 5k. So to break 15 minutes for the 5k, for the first time I was averaging 130 kilometers in the 8 weeks prior to the race. I was doing 1 speed session per week, which was typically 500 meter reps or shorter. Now these would all be around my 3k to 1500 meter pace to really work on my speed. I was also doing 1 or sometimes even 2 threshold style sessions, which ranged between 8 kilometers and 14 kilometers of total volume, and these were all around that 3:20 per kilometer mark. So again, 20 seconds slower than my race pace, but I found this to be really good for developing my strength and to building the foundation for my speed. And the third aspect was those long runs, again alternating between a long and slightly slower long run versus a shorter but slightly faster long run, and I did that every other week. One other thing to note during this period is I also did a lot of racing. I raced a 10k, I think 2 weeks prior to my 5k PB, I ran 31:34, and I also did a 1500 meters. I think I ran around 4:08. So nothing crazy, but these were just sort of like B-goal races to get me ready, to get me sharp, and to be ready to go into a race with a little bit of like tactic, a bit of know-how of where my fitness is at. So that's it for today's video. That's how I ran sub 15 for the 5k for the first time. My PB is now 14:42, so I ran a little bit quicker since that day 16 months ago, but it's nice to have a little look back at the training I was doing at the time and see how things have progressed. But I hope you can take a few workouts, a few little tips and tricks from today's video. But until next time, aspire to run, run to inspire, and we'll see you again soon.